Michelle, it's great to have you join us. We were hoping Trustee McComb was joining, and she has had some technical difficulty, I gather. So we were requiring another trustee to join us for quorum, so that is terrific.
Yes, I'm glad I was able to join virtually. If you hear background, it's just my little girl. So.
Okay. And if you could, when it comes time to a vote, if you could make sure we can see that your vote. So welcome.
Yep.
Thank you. Welcome everyone to the special regular meeting of the board, November 5th, in Chesley. I'd like to welcome everyone, and I'd like to acknowledge that we're meeting on the traditional land of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, which is represented by the communities of Saugeen First Nation and Chippewas of Nawash Unceded First Nation. We also think of the Métis Nation of Ontario, whose history and people are well represented in Bruce and Grey County. We are joined this evening virtually by Trustee Morgan, Trustee McComb, welcome, and Trustee Ritchie. We also would like to welcome Michael Maynard, who is joining us virtually. He is from the ADR Chambers in the Office of the Integrity Commissioner, and he will be presenting to us a little later. We have received regrets tonight from Trustee Long, Trustee Keikonen, and Trustee Craig. So I'm first looking for a mover and seconder that the agenda for the special regular meeting of the Board of November 5th, 2024 be approved as printed. Trustee Atkinson and Trustee McComb, all in favor? Thank you, that is carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest on our agenda item this evening? I see none. So we're meeting tonight. Just like to give people a little process before we get started. We are meeting tonight as we have received a final investigation report from the Integrity Commissioner regarding a trustee code of conduct complaint. This report sets out findings that Trustee Long breached the board's trustee code of conduct. Before we proceed to the report, I will briefly summarize the process that we need to follow in accordance with the provisions of the Education Act and the board's code of conduct. Ultimately, we need to make two determinations: whether there has been a breach or breaches of the code, and if so, the appropriate sanction or sanctions. There are only 3 available sanctions permitted by section 218.3, bracket 3 of the Education Act, and if there is a finding of breach, which include censure of the member, barring the member from attending all or part of a meeting of the board or a meeting of the committee of the board, barring the member from sitting on one or more committees of the board for a period of time specified by the board. The Integrity Commissioner has been appointed under the board's Code of Conduct Policy BP 1108-D, Code of Conduct Trustee, to deliver this report and provide recommendations. However, it is important to emphasize the board's role in exercising its own independent judgment as a board of trustees, and to assess the report and its recommendations, and then make its own determination on whether there has been a breach of the code of conduct, and as such, the appropriate sanction. Finally, the Board of Trustees will need to put a motion on the floor regarding whether there is finding of breach or non-breach. If there is a finding of breach, we will need a separate motion on sanction. If the Board of Trustees find no breach, then there will be no need to consider the matter of sanctions in relation to the alleged breaches in the report. If there is a finding of breach, Then the trustee who is subject to the finding will receive a written notice of the finding in the next day or so following the meeting and will have an opportunity to make written submissions. The board will need to reconvene a second meeting to consider any submissions and confirm or revoke its findings. In accordance with the provisions of the Education Act, the trustee that is subject of this report is entitled to be present at this meeting, but may not participate or vote on any of the issues related to their report. If there are no questions regarding this process, then we will proceed to the agenda item B1. And I would just ask Michael Maynard, if I've missed anything in that summary, as you do this work much more frequently than we do, please add it in. We will now start with the report. As was provided to you in your agenda package and received from the Integrity Commissioner dated October 10th, 2024, concerning the conduct of Trustee Long. At this time, I would ask Michael Maynard of ADR Chambers in the Office of the Integrity Commissioner to present the report. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you very much. Through you, Chair, thank you everyone for inviting me to be here today. I don't know most of you, but as noted, my name is Michael Maynard. I'm an Integrity Commissioner here in the province of Ontario for municipalities and school boards. I do this work regularly for 3 school boards in particular, and then in a number of cases, such as with your board on an ad hoc basis. So, you know, if a particular need arises, some boards reach out to me to assist with individual cases as they come up. So as noted, you know, there was a complaint made. Actually, there were several complaints made, which I felt it was best to proceed with together because they were very related in terms of obviously who the individuals involved were, but also in terms of content. The issues were quite wide-ranging. I've dealt with them, you know, in the report. I'm not here to sort of go through the report step by step or anything like that. It's before you. You've had some time with it to be able to read it. I'm happy to answer questions for clarification if I can. If there's something that there may be some confusion about, I'm happy to do that. But in terms of my findings and recommendations, they are all there before you now, and ultimately, exactly as the chair just said, you know, this is a situation where the board is self-governing, and it is up to the board entirely whether to make the findings that I've recommended or other findings, or to not make those findings. And then if findings are made, to decide whether or not there should be sanctions applied as a result of those findings. The chair did not leave anything out. You covered it quite well in terms of the process. But if there are any questions about that, I'd be happy to assist with that as well moving forward. So with that said, I will turn it back over, and I'm again happy to take any questions for clarification that may arise.
Are there any questions of clarification regarding the report that you received? Trustee Morgan?
You're on mute, Trustee Morgan.
Looks like you've unmuted yourself, but maybe your speaker's not working yet, or your microphone.
Oh.
Yeah. Trustee Morgan, we're wondering if you, I hate to say this, try to leave and come back in and see if that will.
Is the computer volume turned on?
Trustee Morgan, we do not believe it's on our end. If you would like to try rejoining, and then we'll see if, oh, you've just done that.
Whoa. That's too many friends.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
He's divided.
Let's go exit the other one.
Yeah, otherwise it'll give feedback.
Which is the silent Fran, though? That is the question.
When it's mute. Turn on. Yeah, you could remove free from a meeting.
I can remove the extra one.
Okay. Okay.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Great, thank you. I would just like to say to Mr. Maynard, I read your document, all 52 pages of it, and I thought it was extremely thorough. And thank you very much for your work.
The chair, thank you, and I'm glad that that it's assistive too.
Any other questions of clarification regarding the report? I don't see any. So we're going to proceed to item B1, 2. I'm going to put the motion on the floor, which to accept the breaches as outlined in the Integrity Commissioner's report. I'd just like to remind trustees that, as we do with any motions that are on the floor, as part of our procedural bylaws, a trustee may speak twice to any motion that's on the floor, and they can only speak a second time after anyone else has had the opportunity to speak, and they're no more than 3 minutes at a time. So I'm going to put a motion on the floor. I'm looking for a mover and seconder that Trustee Long has contravened the Code of Conduct, specifically sections 3.11, 3.12, 3.13, 3.32, 3.45, and 3.45 and 3.51. as outlined in the Integrity Commissioner's report. Could I have a mover? Trustee Lutz, seconder, Trustee Morgan. Does anyone wish to speak to the motion that's on the floor before you? I don't see anyone that wishes to speak to that. So it was moved, I'm not going to repeat it, moved by Trustee Lutz, seconded by Trustee Morgan. All in favor? And that is carried. So our second work then is the determination of sanctions. We will now proceed with item B13. I'll be putting the motion on the floor in support of the recommended sanctions provided by Michael Menard of ADR Chambers Office of the Integrity Commissioner, and I'll be looking for a mover and seconder. That the board impose the following sanctions on Trustee Long. That the Board of Trustees censure Trustee Long, and that the Board of Trustees bar Trustee Long from sitting on all committees of the board for the period of 90 days beginning January 6th, 2025. Could I have a mover? Trustee Johnstone, seconder. Trustee McComb. And again, does anyone wish to speak to the motion on the floor before them? Trustee Lutz?
I have two quick questions. The first would be about the start date, why that has been chosen. And the second would be, because they're sort of related, like they're both procedural. And the second is, does it change our quorum requirements if someone is barred from attending, just because sometimes we have problems with that. So, okay, so that'd be great, thank you.
I can tackle the first one, and then I will look to Crystal for the second one. Because the process, as I outlined, there'll be, starting tomorrow, the next day, we'll do a 14-day period, which will take us after our first board meeting. So we'll be looking to have an additional board meeting to uphold the sanctions if there was to be any change. So, and then we're into our Christmas, like the holiday break. So we thought January made sense just out of the logistics of it.
Timeline makes sense. Thank you for repeating that for me.
And Crystal?
Through the chair. Yes, that would change our quorum. If he's not permitted to attend, then he wouldn't be counted in our quorum requirements.
Thank you.
Any other questions, clarification, or concerns? I see none. So it was moved by trustee, do you want me to repeat? Trustee Johnstone, seconded by trustee McComb, that the board impose the following sanctions on trustee Long, that the board of trustees censure trustee Long, and that the board of trustees bar trustee Long from sitting on all committees of the board for the period of 90 days, beginning January 6, 2025. All in favor? And that is carried. And unanimous. Thank you so much, Michael Maynard. I keep wanting to say the whole title again for me. Thank you very much for joining us and being available for questions. And with that, I would like to move that the Blue Water District School Board adjourn at 5:23 p.m. Have a mover, please. Trustee Johnstone, seconded. Trustee Lutz. Thank you very much, everyone. We are adjourned.